Hi there, it's Sam from the Trying Life of ME, and today I wanted to talk about diagnosis. I myself went through a long process to get diagnosed, and I know for some, as it was for myself, this can become very frustrating. The first thing I needed to do was to find out what was going on. Now, I suffered from tiredness and pain for most of my adult life. And I think at some points I didn't understand, well, for a long time, and at certain points I didn't understand what this was and what was going on. Now, when I was younger, a teenager, I used to miss school because I was feeling tired. If I had, let's say I had PE last lesson, I was unable to come into school the next day, which caused me a lot of issues with education. I managed to finish school, but I didn't get good grades because I missed out on learning, on education in full. So this affected my adult life. Now, as a teenager, I didn't understand what was wrong with me, and as I approached adulthood, this kind of the emotional turmoil that was caused from being tired and in pain a lot didn't turn into, but was deemed to be depression and a psychological problem. So I wasn't diagnosed with depression, but I was medicated for depression. And this led me over many, many years to think that I suffered from depression. As I got older, especially when I got into my 30s, I realised that there was a cause and effect system in my life, pattern going on, where I was tired all the time, and at certain points I thought this was depression, so I would get angry at myself, I would feel guilty, I would think that it was me that was, well, I wasn't able to cope within society, so I'd become withdrawn and stay in. And so when I was depressed, I was tired. Now, as I said, as I got into my 30s, I realised that it was actually the other way around, and it was that I was getting tired, and then I was withdrawing inside because I couldn't get out. I would spend time in bed, not being able to move at some parts and function properly. Increasingly, this became a problem. I have a child, so I wasn't able to look after, well, that's the wrong word. I wasn't able to interact with my child as much as I would like. And this became disturbing to me even more, and I think I put even more guilt and stress upon myself. And in the end, after going to the doctors constantly and not getting any help, I would feel ill. And as most people, when you feel ill, I'd phone up my GP and I would make an appointment and I would go there. And they didn't have an answer for me. For at least 2 years, I would be going in saying that I was in pain, or that I was tired, or there would be something wrong with me and I couldn't understand it. I remember one time I went in and I felt that day that I was in a bubble, just completely completely kind of withdrawn and feeling tired and not able to function properly. And it was like, it wasn't a problem. The GP didn't see a problem with this. In the end, frustration boiled over. I moved surgeries. And even at the next surgery that I went to, I still had issues. I was given all kinds of neurological drugs because I was suffering from fibromyalgia also, which they didn't know at the time. Without a diagnosis, I was basically drugged up, and I didn't like the drugs, and they made me feel even worse and didn't help with the pain. So I finally got hold of my medical notes. I decided to investigate my illness over the years. While I was doing this, my wife had spoken to, I think it was Action for ME, and they had suggested that the symptoms that I had did suggest that I had ME and probably fibromyalgia. So I started investigating through my medical records, symptoms that I'd had over the years, and I was astonished to find so many instances where I'd gone to the doctor complaining of pain and tiredness, and not being given much help, or being sent away with either antidepressants or neurological drugs, but without any investigation. Now, over a period of time, I'd had bloods and all these things, and they'd come back okay, except for a marker that kept coming up in my blood, which was to do with my immune system, which, when I did investigation, I found out that a few cases with people with ME, they had the same marker as I did. In the end, I got so frustrated with the doctors, I ended up printing out it was like a checklist for ME, CFS and fibromyalgia, and one for mental health issues, and I scored really high in the fibromyalgia and the ME checklist. And so I took them to my GPs, and they went through them, and because I had a kind of factual plan of what was happening to me, they referred me to the ME clinic. And at the ME clinic, after a few months, I was diagnosed with ME. But even this process probably took me, at least to get from where I thought I had ME, CFS and fibromyalgia, to the point of diagnosis, was at least 6 months. And before that, I was suffering with high amounts of pain and tiredness for at least 4, maybe 5 years. Now I've been diagnosed with both fibromyalgia and ME. Fibromyalgia was diagnosed by a rheumatologist. ME was diagnosed by a neurologist, a part of the ME clinic. Now, after I got diagnosed, I guess I expected some kind of plan for rehabilitation of some kind, teaching me how to live with it. I know that there's PACE techniques that I know now that there's a lot of research to say they don't work. But I guess I expected, when you get ill, you expect that you're going to get some kind of help from the medical profession and get better. And so I was referred to an occupational therapist. That took months. That must have been 3, 4, maybe 5 months before I saw them. I then was, after I saw her, we discussed my issues that I had and how I was feeling, and how ME, CFS and fibromyalgia affected my everyday life. And it was deemed that with discussion, that I should go and see a psychotherapist, which I did. And I saw a psychotherapist for 5 months, which I have to say didn't help me. I'm not saying that it won't help anybody else. It could well do. But because I'd done so much research into my illness over the year, or over a period of about a year, I kind of understood what was going on with me. I understood that I had to relieve the pressure and not stress out so much, and understand myself and understand what I could do and what I couldn't do, and don't feel guilt about this because I'm ill. And so for me, the psychotherapy didn't work. And then after this period of time is where I'm at kind of now. I last saw the psychotherapist in November, and it's now April. So it's, what we're looking at. So that's, it might have even been October. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So we're 7 months on from that. I was re-referred back to the ME clinic from the psychotherapist, because I get discharged and then I have to be re-referred. So I'm now in the process of waiting again to see an occupational therapist. which can become very frustrating because in the meantime I feel like I'm just having to get on with the way I feel. Now, for anyone that's watching this is my scenario. I live in the southwest, and ME services are not great down here. In other places in the UK and the world, I'm sure that there are better facilities to facilitate rehabilitation, so please don't lose any hope in what I'm saying. I'm just explaining my diagnosis and how you might want to go about getting a diagnosis and the services that came from my area of the UK. One thing I would like to say is that I definitely, through the period of reflection of my illness, have got rid of some of the guilt feelings and the feeling that this is my fault. I understand that I'm ill now. I understand that I can't do the things I used to be able to do. Yeah, it's frustrating, and yes, I want to be better, and every day I wake up thinking, right, today, this is going to be the day where I feel good. This is the day that I'm not going to be tired, and almost every day I find myself feeling the same. Yes, it does get to me, I won't lie. I do have days where I think that I can't go on, maybe, or how do I live like this? But life is precious, and I want to focus on the positives. So if, like I was, you're feeling that you don't know what's wrong with you and you're investigating ME, CFS and fibromyalgia, look into it. Find the websites in the description box of my channel. I have listed a few websites that are very good websites that I would suggest you go and visit for any information, and you can ring them. I think that there's definitely numbers on there where you can ring and contact them and get information packs, and just investigate the way that you feel, and all is not lost. You know, if you think that you may have it, ME, definitely investigate it, because there is a high percentage or a high chance that you probably do, and there is help out there. Don't get me wrong, there is information and there is help. Without the websites and without knowing this information, I certainly psychologically wouldn't be able to carry on each day functioning. I think that's the end of this little bit of my video. I hope that I've given you a little bit of information into how you can go about getting diagnosed. And for anybody out there, just keep smiling, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.